Right, we are about to wrap up this Eye of Traldar, I hope, so welcome back. So here we are in this room. We are going to search it. Now we find the usual small change on the two dead bodies. We also find a note, another of these notes. This is from Captain Tiberian to Lieutenant Aeneas, and it says, Aurelian has to be moved. There's some fracas in the place, for which that idiot Garlet is probably at fault as usual. The move was sudden, so get some of Aurelian's things that he will need for the journey and bring them to the watch house. He wants his robe, the scroll on the main table, a page of notes in the robe pocket he forgot. These wizards are so damn absent-minded. And the spellbook from that old alchemist fellow downstairs. Don't tarry. Captain Tiberian. So we killed Captain Aeneas. We find the scroll on the table. We find the cloak on the table. Malin pockets the scroll. It has good spells on it that he can use. The spells are Light and Charm Person and Mirror Image. He can, once he casts Read Magic, copy the two level 1 spells into a spellbook. The cloak will turn out to be, once we cast Detect Magic, an elven cloak. Like the elven boots we found before, that's an extremely powerful item. It makes you able to hide in shadows on a roll of 1 to 5 on a d6. That's about an 85% chance of success. That and the elven boots give you a 90% chance of success. So yeah, you're looking at a level 20 thief abilities given in level 1. Now the odd thing is, both of those items are in the basic Dungeon Master's rulebook as potential treasure. They seem to be too powerful to be in the basic rulebook. A bit imbalanced. If we take the cloak, I'm going to reduce it to maybe a plus 10% to hide in shadows, just like the boots are a plus 10% to move silently. The scroll in itself is a brilliant piece of treasure. Malin, as you may have noticed from his portrait, has leveled up, and he is now a level 2 mage. Now we'll work out what his second spell will be. It's up to the Dungeon Master to add that. You're meant to sort of have a backstory where some mentor mage gives the spell. The only mentor mage we have here is Nikolaus, and it's convenient that he's here. He can add as the mentor who will give Malin his second spell. So what do we have to do next? Well, we know because of this note that this is the watch house, and Aurelian, finally we know where he is. He is here. Even though we don't know that is the watch house, Nikolaus, the mage who has been here for some time, as a servant, a slave, knows it. And not only that, we have the perfect excuse to go to the gatehouse, because the note tells us that we have to deliver items belonging to the mage Aurelian. So why don't we just do that? Why don't we go there, knock on the door and say, we have got these items, let us in. Oddly enough, in the book, the module gives you some hints and tips of what, as the Dungeon Master, players could say in order to get through the gates. But the most obvious one, that we're here to deliver the items in the note, is not there. Okay, but that's the excuse we're going to use. We're going to go here, we're going to say to the person manning the gates, we've got the items, and we're actually going to show him the note from Captain Tiberian to prove that is true. Now I'm going to recreate this in one of these boards. Right. Okay. And what we're looking at here is how did best do this? This room here with the open door is here. This is a courtyard area, and these gates lead into the main fortress of Fort Doom. This is an annex, and these gates are here. This room here is off to the side, and it has a closed door with some guards in it. They will be irrelevant for this fight. I don't know why, but that's how it is described. So let's put all of this plan into action And let's see if anybody else in our party dies and keeps this whole game real. Right, we've got Niklaus here in the middle. He's going to do the talking. He is a known person in the keep. So this guy here is on the other side. He answers the door. These doors, we're told, are massive. They're 18 feet high and they're immovable, even with a knock spell. But there is a small door within the door, and that can open, and it's got a little shuttered window which pulls open when we knock. And this character here behind says, "What do you want?" Niklaus hands through the note which says we are to deliver goods to the mage. The guard looks at the note, sees the signature of Captain Tiberian underneath it, believes it's legit, and lets Niklaus in. And immediately everybody else comes piling in as well, and that guard backs off into the room. Now we're told that these three characters here are the main masterminds behind this whole organisation. That's Aurelian, here's the Eye of Traldar, that's Captain Tiberian, and this is the third guy called Todaz, who is the chief slaver, and they are having an argument. Here are 4 soldiers, including the one that let us in, and we are told, right, I shall read from the book. You hear a pair of raised voices coming from beyond the door. The first is slightly nasal and whining, and the man says, "This is too dangerous, just because there are few troublemakers in the place." He is interrupted by a much gruffer, more sarcastic man's voice. "Just a few, but they've accounted for enough of our men. We don't know where they are. Frankly, I don't care. I'm not going to take the blame for this. If that magical thing gets lost inside this fortress, I'm for the high jump. By sending you out with an escort to meet the Baron halfway, you'll get the thing to that cold-blooded swine Sverdlov in half the time, and you can deliver these strategic plans to the Baron a day early into the bargain." The first voice protests again. "Sending us out onto the road with an escort is absurd. I demand to be taken to the Obsidian Tower for safety." There is a guttural laugh. "Once you're out of here, you're not my problem, and I've had enough problems. There's 5 good and true men here now, and just another 20 when my orders get to that idiot Julianus. Just wait a few minutes." The argument goes on, but both men simply repeat the same points. What will you do now? The PCs have to act. They have to attack the occupants of this room before the threatened 20 extra guards should turn up. If the PCs do nothing, 20 extra soldiers will arrive through the inner gates and head to the courtyard within 5 minutes. The PCs must act now and make this clear to them. Okay? Is that clear to you guys? Right, all clear. Inside this room are 7 men, stats for whom are given below. The PCs have a 50% chance of getting surprise on the first round of combat and cannot be surprised themselves. If they don't get surprise, they have a +2 bonus to initiative on the first round of combat. Good. Right, everybody's going to pile into here. With the usual overload of people. Oh boy. Right, let's get this over with. Do we get surprise? 1 to 3, we do. Make it good. We don't. Let's roll for initiative. And we clearly get initiative. That's good. Magic first. Our new upgraded Malin is going to cast Sleep. Right. There are 4 guards, 3 men. Make it a good one. And it's good enough. These 4 guards are 1 hit dice people, and they're immediately asleep. And that means there's 4 HP left over for one of these people to fall asleep. Well, I'm going to pick for one of them. 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6. And it's this guy. And he is the slaver we have never heard of before. This guy Todaz. Right, he is a 3rd level thief. So largely now we have 2 people to deal with. Good. So we're just going to charge in there. Tybor, Alexei, Ben, Maradin, Thaddeus and Sylvia are going to stay behind for arrows. We do missile first, and The only person we can really get line of sight on is that guy there. So let's roll for Maradin attacking Aurelian, the mage, the cause of all our problems. He has a THAC0 of 17 in missiles, and Aurelian has an AC of 8. Right, well that's a miss. Sylvia has a go. Right, Sylvia's THAC0 is 19, plus 1 for the short range, so she hits armor class 6, and that hits. He has armor class 8, and she does 6 damage. He's down to 1 HP. Right, Thaddeus, I don't see it possible that he could shoot anyone. Let's do our 3 warriors on this main guy, and we'll go with Ben first. Remember, he gets plus 2 to hit and damage, and he has a plus 1 sword. And that's a 13. Hits AC 6. Right, well that's a miss. Right, okay, we'll move on quickly. Right, Aurelian. Alexei hits 16, plus 2 is 18. AC 1, 8 max damage, plus 2 is 10. This guy's from 16 down to 6. Big Tybor, plus 3 strength, bonus plus 1 for his magic sword. And that's a 19 altogether. That's easily a hit. 4 plus 4 is 8. And we take out that guard in one go. Now it's the mage's turn. And this mage has some really odd spells, according to the book. One of which is Mirror Image, which he casts. And that conjures up 1 to 4 replicas of himself. And it conjures up 1. That's his go. Right, let's roll for initiative. And he gets initiative. Well, what is he going to do? His other spell is Shield. Okay, so he casts that. That bumps up his AC to 2. That is not going to save him. Right, it's our go. Missiles first. Maradin misses. Sylvia misses. Melee. Ben misses. Alexei hits and does 3 damage. He's dead. Okay. Well, that climactic battle ended rather suddenly. Had it gone on too long, the room here had 4 extra guards which could come rushing in. It didn't go on long enough for that to happen. So we have got to loot this place, and sure enough, let's describe what we get. Well, we take several rings off Aurelian and this slaver. We cut everyone else's throat. That's standard. Malin is desperate for a magic ring, and we have a large number of loot that we haven't actually discerned yet is magic or not. So he has a wand of detect magic. So we all gather in here with all the loot that we have found on our adventures, and he's about to use his wand when Nicholas actually says, "I know that spell." And sure enough, he casts detect magic on all our treasure, and everything that's magic glows, and the whole place lights up like Las Vegas. What have we found that is magic that we have not yet discerned? Well, here is the list. Tybor's sword is a sword plus 1. The mace that we got off the cleric is a mace plus 1. Donard does not use maces, and he, according to the weapons mastery system, is unskilled in it. He will be worse off using the plus 1 mace than his unmagical warhammer, so he's going to give that as a gift to one of our helpers here who have been troopers. The short sword that we found on the thief, who was the administrator that we killed at the end of last session, that's a short sword plus 1. Liz has that. That leather armor of his also is magical. That's leather armor plus 1. It doesn't fit Liz, it's not the right size, but when they escape here and get back to civilization, I'm going to say that it can be retailored to fit Liz, but it's going to cost her 100 gold pieces. We find another ring of protection +1 on the Tiberian captain, and we find 2 new suits of chainmail +1, one of them from the watchhouse and one of them on the captain. We have far too many of these. Donard is back on plate mail. Ben wants to get back into plate mail. Sylvia got some elven chain mail from an elf right at the beginning when we were ambushed all those weeks ago, and she wants to keep that. Even though it's not as good as plate mail, it's her only link to home or anything home-like. And we also find, of all things, something quite unique is a ring of fire resistance. When we cut the throat of this lying scumbag slaver, that's what we take off him. And a ring of fire resistance is another good item, but I think it's appropriate for this level. It's not that overpowered. And of course, we search a desk in here and we find the Eye of Traldar. What is the Eye of Traldar? The Eye of Traldar, after all of this, we find out what it is. It is a yellow-orange gem the size of a large hen's egg, mounted in a dragon's claw setting fashioned from toughened red gold. It is a powerful divination device, one that is also capable of exerting control over minds. Its powers can only be utilised by a character capable of using magic user spells, a magic user or elf. The powers that can be used usually depend on the experience of the person using the eye. At basic levels, a magic user or elf, levels 1 to 3, can call forth the following powers from the eye. First level, detect magic, detect evil 3 times a day. Second level, detect invisibility, ESP twice per day. Third level, locate, range 5 miles per level, once per day. The eye certainly possesses other powers usable by higher level spellcasters. Some of these are documented in the module DDA4, the Dimrak Dead. I will not be playing that. We are not going to be keeping this eye. We are going to be giving it back to its rightful owners. So the question underneath here is, how do we get out of here? Well, that's not that difficult. We're all going to go back into the courtyard here, and we're going to go back to the stables. Now we have 2 options. We can go from the stables through the trapdoor back into the sewers to meet our allies there, and then we have to sort of get ourselves out of the city of Fort Doom and away across the border. There's a much faster way than that. There's stables here, and there's about 20 horses. That's more than enough for the size of the people we have, and we're taking Niklaus with us. How do we bluff it? How do we actually ride through the city? Well, we have the cloaks, we have emblems that we are guards, we have some fine looking mail. We're simply going to get on these horses with our weapons out and simply ceremoniously trot or canter out of the gates and through the town as though we are on business. People actually believe what they see, and sure enough, that's what we do. We simply march out of the town looking like we own the place, and we then have to make it all the way back to Loon, where we will rest for a bit and consider what happens next. Okay, our party, our entire retinue of 10 people on horseback, trot and canter to outside of the Black Eagle Barony city, and people, well, the peasants and serfs lower their eyes because we do look like we mean business, and the guards stand aside and let us through the gates. Word has gone out to the guards that there will be a party leaving to meet the Baron. We know that because we heard the conversation and we read a note. And then once we're away from the eyes of the people of the city, we gallop. We gallop all the way across the border and all the way to Loon. There we find Petronius, our main contact there, and we give him the Eye of Traldar, and that is essentially the adventure over. We're going to stay a couple of days in Loon to rest and recover. Malin casts Read Magic on the scroll that he found, and it contains 3 spells. They were Charm Person, Light, and Mirror Image. He is able to copy the Charm and the Light spell into a spellbook. He has to wait until level 3 before he can do the Mirror Image. He also has a Scroll of Invisibility that he can also copy later. His new spell that he will be given is a gift from the mage Niklaus, who we helped rescue, and that is Shield. So Malin's spellbook is looking quite good. A lot of people came out of that with good treasure, especially a lot of +1 weapons, We've got 2 rings of protection +1, a shield +1, Sylvia has chainmail +1, and even a ring of fire resistance. Liz is shown to an armourer who will refit the magic leather armour to her size, and that costs her 100 gold pieces. But we've got so much gold at this point, and they spend a few days in Lune. For Malin and Liz, this is a new experience because Lune is about twice the size of Threshold, and it actually looks like a city made of stone, whereas they come from some frontier town made of wood. And then it's a short journey, well, it's not a short journey, but it's on our way from Lune to our next destination, which is Keep on the Borderlands. This is where I think I'm going to give my thoughts on the module, the Eye of Traldar. Firstly, I thought the end battle was really anticlimactic. That may be due to the way I played it. Maybe it could have gone differently had dice rolls been different. Let's begin a bit of a review. Well, I thought the beginning, where you were ambushed twice, once by a campsite, where the whole adventure started, then you go into Lune, you're ambushed again in a shop, and then you're hurried on to learn more about what's going on with the Eye of Traldar. I didn't really mind that. The adventure has to start somewhere. There was quite a bit of written or reading exposition. That could have been shortened. A lot of it did repeat itself. Overall, I did enjoy it. There was a couple of niggling things like proofreading. There were typing mistakes, and I think the shop, which is a minor thing, the description of the fight in the shop didn't match the map given, and I think that could be reconsidered. We also had the monster caverns, classic monster caverns, nothing to complain about there. I like the idea that you had to get the prisoners through the caverns, especially when it came to rolling for wandering monsters. I spent an entire session just fighting wandering monsters. And above that, you had the dungeons, where the prisoners were, along with an ogre, a slaver, some orcs, and some soldiers. I enjoyed that bit. I thought the dungeon was laid out fairly well. It was pretty logical. You had the option of trying to find hidden stairs up, which helped. There was also a lot of good reasons why you could clear this dungeon in stages. You could fight some enemies, go off, be healed, recharge your spells, come back and do the next bit. So that meant it was suitable for a party of any size really. However, there was a cell with 4 heroes in it. We took 2, Big Tybor and his friend Thaddeus, and then Maridin. Then eventually we had the other 2 join us. So along with Alexei, we ended up with a party of 10. Now why that seemed necessary was because when you review this entire area from the point of view of the Dungeon Master, there's at least 30 enemies in it. 6 of them are level 3, and the other thing is there are no excuses to go away, heal and come back. You have to do this entire area in one day. It seemed plausible that you would need 10 people versus 30 to get through this, and there were some stages where I utilised about 8 of the 10. There always seemed to be 2 characters who there wasn't room, even in this open area of the courtyard. But if a character got damaged or wounded, then there was always someone who would be able to take their place. That's probably where the 10th person would have come in. There was a guardhouse here which had 6 orcs and 6 soldiers, or 4 soldiers, I forget. And this was quite cramped. I moved that fight to outside the courtyard here, because this is the problem I had, was at some point you went from this very open area fighting guards on battlements and in gatehouses. You had a party of 10 people, and then all of a sudden you were thrown into this tiny little cramped room with 1 enemy. This middle floor had a mage, it had another enemy, he fled to the top floor, and then we were all trying to cram in to this top floor here to fight 2 people, and it became a bit absurd trying to manage a party of 10 in a tiny area like this. But that same party of 10 made sense when you consider the overall scale of the keep. The other thing I found about the end game which I didn't like was, yes, we were picking off these level 3 characters one by one in these cramped conditions, and when we got to the end fight there were 3 level 3 fighters, 4 soldiers, and 1 sleep spell took out most of that fight. It was a bit of an anticlimax in another reasonably cramped space. I would have liked to have seen some kind of end fight where it was in a large area where my party of 10 was facing off another party of 10 or 12, that all the high level characters were arrayed against you, and it was a battle. I didn't get a battle at the end. There was a series of cramped one-on-one fights that just went on a bit one too many. We always were looking for the Eye of Traldar, and it was always not there. It was always, oh, we have to go somewhere else. Overall, apart from the end game, I really enjoyed that. There may have been times I played it badly. I did lose my first character, but unless people die, then this whole game is just a chore. What are we going to do next? It's keep on the borderlands next, and this keep is somewhere on a border. I've decided that it is somewhere up here, and that's where we were going to from Threshold before we got jumped and got caught up in this adventure. Well, I'm looking forward to it. It's a very, very different beast to be handled in a very different way. It's also considered a beginner's module with more tips for the Dungeon Master. Okay, well that's the Eye of Traldar over. Let's move on. See you next time. But we can't leave without saying farewell to the people we met on our journey here. We have Alexei, the person who got us into all this trouble and who introduced himself by telling us all about his friends who kept dying upon the way, and can we be his new friends. He stays in Lune. He's going to help clear up the fallout of all of this mess. Then we have Thaddeus. He lives in Lune and he has family here. He also has to give some bad news to Imran's wife. We say goodbye to him. He did more than was expected of him. Then we have the charming and charismatic Maridin with his 17 charisma and Big Tybor. They decide to join us upon the road for a few miles as they're heading in our direction. They don't know where they want to go next, but it isn't the keep on the borderlands. Eventually we get to some crossroads and it's time to say goodbye. Maridin shakes our hands and Tybor steps forward to give us a formal farewell. Maridin rolls his eyes, expecting another message of mixed metaphors delivered in high fantasy. And Tybor says, "May the road rise to meet you. May the wind always be at your back and the sun upon your face. May your friends be many and your enemies few, until we meet again." And even the cynical Donard can't sneer at that. And Tybor comes around and gives us all a big hug. Oh, bless. And then he and Maridin walk off in their direction, and maybe one day we'll meet again.